Hello everybody, James here. Round 2 unfortunately because the video didn't play. Speaking of the video, if you want to see exactly what Stephanie McMahon said that was so unbelievably stupid, plugging a VPN on her podcast, I need to do some preamble first, so if you just want to see that video and my reaction to it, skip to the second half of this video. But for everybody else, ESPN and their deal with WWE. So you'll all know August 6th, WWE announced the latest money-making deal with ESPN to exclusively broadcast 12 PLE nights, that's 10 events and 2 nights each for WrestleMania and SummerSlam, for $1.6 billion in all. Now, that's for US-based fans, of course, but for US-based fans used to getting the WWE PLEs on Peacock, this is mostly a massive annoyance. So, the new ESPN streaming service, I said that very deliberately then, will cost more than triple what Peacock were charging until July of this year. Now, assuming you don't already have a cable or similar subscription plan that includes ESPN, you are going to need to fork out an extra $30 per month to get the PLEs. To make matters even worse, you will still need Peacock to legally watch WWE Saturday Night's main event, which was formerly simulcast on NBC, but that has since been pulled from NBC network television because the views just weren't there, and the Goldberg headline show had done so poorly in the ratings that I guess they just kept it on Peacock for now. So that basically means you need to stump up per month $30 for ESPN. That's where you'll find all, or at least most, of the WWE PLEs, and WWE ran so many PLEs this year, seemingly, because they wanted to fulfill their obligations to Peacock as soon as they could, get out of the contract as soon as they could, and then sign this much bigger money deal with ESPN as soon as possible. Now, whether WWE reduce the amount of PLEs they produce, or ESPN buys the rights to more, or they broadcast ancillary PLEs from elsewhere is still up in the air at this point. Next, $11 for Peacock. Once again, you still need that to watch legally in the United States Saturday night's main event. That will now exclusively air on Peacock, formerly also simulcast on NBC, as well as, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, NBC, WWE's long-forgotten B-show, WWE Main Event. Next, a bare minimum of $8 per month for Netflix. That's the ad-supported tier. But to be honest with you, you'd probably rather have the standard $18 without ads for the WWE Raw viewership in the United States. And then you will need a basic cable package with the USA Network, which should run you around $40 per month, I think, for a fairly basic thing. And then you can watch WWE SmackDown as well, legally. And then, in fact, actually, the only WWE programming in the States you can watch free with a television set and no cable subscription is WWE NXT on the CW network. Now, that is, and this is with the cheap Netflix with ad-supported thing. There's some bloody kid crying outside, and it's not mine either, as loud as he possibly can, so if I'm distracted, that's the reason why. $89 per month with the cheaper Netflix tier to watch all major WWE programming, and that is a heck of a lot of money to invest in a pastime. Conversely, you can get HBO Max for $9.99 per month to watch AEW Collision and Dynamite. Like how 500,000 AEW fans already do this every week, according to completely made-up numbers, plus, of course, the optional pay-per-view extras. But here's the thing. Here in the UK, as well as Canada and Australia and basically everywhere else on Earth, it's nowhere near as expensive. So for the UK market, which of course I'm a resident, so therefore I'm an expert in it, the UK charges on Netflix £5.99 per month. That is the lowest ad-supported tier. That is the equivalent of just over $8 per month. So call it about $8, in today's conversion rate. So it's about $81 cheaper per month to be a WWE fan outside of the United States than it is within the United States. The only show that isn't on Netflix for us is Saturday night's main event. But happily, because the show is available on YouTube free of charge to all non-US based customers and residents, that's no extra charge. But US residents can indeed access non-US based Netflix with the help of a virtual private network, or VPN. Now, with VPNs, once again, this is not an advert. This is why I'm not mentioning any particular names. You can hide your IP, you can hide your location, and basically mask the fact that you're in the US by just clicking a button, you're in the UK. and VPN usage, specifically in the UK, has rocketed like crazy thanks to Keir Starmer, the worst Prime Minister in living memory. Keep in mind probably is worse, even worse than Liz Truss at this point, for goodness sake. Well, he's getting there at least. This isn't a political show. Is that VPN use has rocketed since certain Labour government has forced adult-orientated websites of a specific nature to have age verification. I think it might be the same in the States now as well, but I don't know that for a fact. So basically everyone's using a VPN now to hide their country's origin and just making it in Australia or Canada or wherever it is, so they don't have to give the government essentially or a third party their private information, so that the government can no doubt put it all on a database and trample our rights and freedoms before selling said information to third parties for profit, or spying on its citizens, or arresting people for thought crimes, assuming that information isn't compromised or exploited by hackers. First, not a political show. Anyway, a Netflix subscription, VPN subscription for about $2 a month or whatever it might be, and then you can pretend you're from elsewhere and get access to all that lovely WWE programming for around a 90% discount. This is ESPN and Peacock and the dying pay-per-view and cable industry's worst nightmare. WWE wants to sell their PLE rights and television rights for as much money as possible, and if everybody is just using VPNs, then that becomes a problem for WWE and the broadcasters. But this makes it so odd that one of WWE's own podcasts, which airs on ESPN Plus no less, would air an advert for a virtual private network. But to make matters worse, the ad read was performed by Stephanie McMahon, the former WWE Chief Branding Officer, who, while isn't working within WWE in an official capacity, still hosts a WWE-branded podcast, which she is hired for, and then shows up on television and guerrilla position a lot for somebody not hired by the company she constantly seems to be appearing for. But to make matters even worse, this is what she actually said once again on a WWE-owned podcast that is broadcast on ESPN+. 1 second.
WWE on Netflix is truly the best thing ever. But there's one catch. Not everybody gets that. A lot of you are still watching WWE the old school way, on cable, dealing with boring commercials while...
Dealing with boring commercials. That's very much... I'm going to run this through a couple of times, but...
While I'm enjoying uninterrupted action. Let's fix that with today's sponsor, VPN.
Let's fix that problem of broadcasting adverts, which is the sole reason that WWE and these broadcasters, sign these lucrative deals. It's beggars belief once again.
WWE the old school way, on cable, dealing with boring commercials while I'm enjoying uninterrupted action. So
Stephanie McMahon herself, apparently, according to this, is also... Oh, the camera's up there. ESPN. Stephanie McMahon herself is using a VPN and then not spending $30 on ESPN, apparently, according to this read anyway. Once again, one more time, this is unbelievable.
A lot of you are still watching WWE the old school way.
Yeah, you idiot. Spending $89 a month plus to watch all that WWE action the old-fashioned way. You clown.
On cable, dealing with boring commercials while I'm enjoying uninterrupted action. Let's fix that with today's sponsor, VPN.
Can I also say that Stephanie McMahon is looking in the wrong camera, and also this is a horrible ad read, just soulless, man. I've done enough ad reads, for goodness sake. I was really putting the effort in. Right, let's go back. So Stephanie McMahon, who works for WWE, once again, has just signed, WWE has just signed a lucrative deal with ESPN. Pretty much said on a WWE podcast, you are a sucker for paying $30 for an ESPN service when you can get it for a third of that price for all the programming, including the PLEs. $2 a month VPN and $8 on Netflix, and you get every WWE show for a fraction of the price. It's nuts. No one thought this one through, obviously, especially whoever's running that podcast, especially Stephanie McMahon. Unsurprisingly, reports of Stephanie's bizarre conflict of interest podcast plug made their way public not too soon after, or, reports of people being upset with it from within ESPN. So this is what Fightful said, and Fightful, despite the fact I'm reading this from SE Scoops. Anyway, Stephanie McMahon's recent VPN ad read on her What's Your Story podcast has stirred some issues within ESPN. It has been reported, according to Fightful Select, Excuse me, I've got my water. At least one source we spoke to at ESPN wasn't thrilled by the VPN ad read on Stephanie McMahon's podcast. While the insider didn't expect it to become a major issue, they acknowledge the awkwardness of giving WWE's partnership with ESPN. I don't know if it's an insider or they're just guessing, but I mean, I'm sure everyone's really upset with it. They also said, I think later on in the quote, that they weren't that bothered really by it, but they won't make any major shifts, I'm sure, in the value of spending that much money on WWE programming. Anyway, I've done a couple of VPN ad reads in the past, and the VPN company in question, this is a little insider stuff for you, I guess, with the ad reads, specifically didn't want us to mention any streaming services or any brand names, which I thought was here's what I thought, is that they wanted everything very vague for, I suspect, legal reasons. Who wants a company the size of Netflix or ESPN being name-checked and then, potentially getting legal with you for mentioning them directly for, essentially directing viewers away from spending money on them? I found that particularly interesting that this particular VPN wanted Stephanie McMahon to apparently specifically name Netflix and WWE, and to be honest, far more interesting why Stephanie or whoever was running the podcast would agree to that in the first place. But this brings it to a wider point of the cost of the WWE fan based in the United States to keep up with all the WWE programming. Is it really that much more expensive than prior to 2014 when the WWE network became a thing? And pay-per-views. So let's talk about 2013. If you work out that basic cable at that time probably cost about the same, let's say $40 per month, so you've got USA Network, and I can't even remember where SmackDown was airing in 2013, but anyway, let's assume that's all included in the same package. Then you add on $50 per month for the pay-per-views, which I think is what they cost for the HD pay-per-views in 2013, the year before the network came about. That is, according to an inflation calculator, I'm burping them, $90, and then an inflation calculator, $124 per month is what you'd be spending on the same amount of shows and PLEs. But times have changed, and there's more choice and more availability and more access to more entertainment programming than ever before, and with more people feeling that financial crunch now more than they have in a long time, $89, and keep in mind if you want the non-ad Netflix, you're looking towards $100 per month. That's still a heck of a lot of money for essentially a hobby after work that you keep up with. So, why not follow Stephanie McMahon's advice and get a VPN to watch all your WWE programming? Your wallet will thank you for it. And weirdly enough, I actually agree with Stephanie. This is a far better way of doing it. Just, she's absolutely the wrong messenger to send that message, but there you go. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and following and all that kind of thing, and I'll see you for the next one.